Tarkov is a really cool last name. Okay, Zerg versus Protoss analysis of facing Turtley Skytoss when they're going 3 or more Stargates and trying to mass carrier to get to a critical mass. Thinking about what advantages you can take as a Zerg. The main limitation of Turtley Skytoss is it takes really long for the opponent to ramp up into that composition, which means you can drone really, really freely into your 3 to even 4 base saturation before you need to make units. So it's a fairly formidable style, for one, because they usually play it really safe with Void Rays into cannons to defend their 3rd and 4th bases, and also because if you invest in a lot of anti-ground, sometimes when you're at 200 supply and the Skytoss player is at 200 supply, there's no way for you to kill them. So this progression, I went for 4 hatch before pool. This isn't the opener that you should necessarily do every game against Protoss. I did it because I know that this player goes Skytoss every game, but you could go something like hatch first and then a pool and then another hatch. So they went pretty greedy themselves upon scouting my 4 hatch before pool. They took a fast 3rd Nexus. I don't really care. I don't need to punish that. Whenever you see someone reaching for a lot of economy, you can either try to attack them and punish that economic growth, or you can try to outgreed them. So I'm just droning really hard and making lots of queens. I take 4 gases when I have about 3 base saturation, and I go for 1-1 upgrades ranged before I take my Lair. The reason I do this is because I want to gear up for a 2-2 Queen Hydra max out timing. Queen Hydra, you could say in general, is a really fantastic composition. The queens you can make early, they can spread creep, establish a highway, and they gain value for transfusing later. And they cost no gas. So you can go 1-1, and then a Lair, and then 2-2, and then you make Hydras after you've already started 2-2. So I'm taking my Lair, making 2 spores per base to defend against the Phoenixes, and then really emphasizing creep spread anytime you're against a Phoenix player. Phoenixes can't do anything to tumors. They can pick up queens, but if you have a big enough cluster of queens, they can't pick them up and kill them. So 12 queens, 79 drones. I just went up to 80 really, really quickly. The opponent is on 70 probes, and they already have some interceptors and carriers in the game. 2-2 upgrades as soon as 1-1 is done. I'm still making queens. I took a Lurker Den. Lurker Den takes a little bit longer to complete, and it also allows you to siege these cannons pretty nicely. You don't want to make a lot of Lurkers, like maybe just 2 or 3, or maybe not any Lurkers at all. But once you have your economy set up, you have, I went for 5 gases here, producing tons and tons of Hydra, rallying them across the map. And then here for my unit control, I have my Queen Hydra on one hotkey, and then I have my Hydras on another hotkey. The reason I do this is because I want to make sure there are no Hydras on the front line, it's only Queens on the front line. So if I move my army here, I can press the Hydra hotkey and click back here, and the Hydras will all naturally fall behind the Queens. So when you engage, you'll have lots of tanky Queens in the front line, and none of the fragile Hydras. Whenever you're pushing, you need to make sure you have an Overseer. It keeps you safe against DT, also prepares you to deal with Mothership. Sieging with some Lurkers. So an additional benefit of this is I believe Lurkers are a little bit tankier than Hydras. Yeah, they have 2 armor, 200 HP. Hydras have 80 HP and 1 armor. So when the engagement is happening, you want to make sure you're trying to spend your transfuse into the units in the front. You want to think about which portion of your army is in the front line, and you can just sort of hold your cursor over that unit and transfuse it. Transfusing isn't like, alright, the army's here and I need to wait and see what's going to attack. It's very predictable which unit is going to be attacked first, because you know which unit is the closest to the Protoss army. I haven't committed fully to a trade yet. I'm trying to buy time for 2-2, and just kind of being annoying and posturing outside their base, and continuing to spread creep. Notice the creep is all the way across the map to the opponent's side of things. This also means new Hydras that I make will reach the opponent faster. I'm trying to keep the Overseer behind the army so it doesn't get sniped. Cleaning up this 4th base is pretty good. Notice the supply here. Protoss hasn't really taken any damage to their army, other than interceptors, but there's still only a 156 supply. Carriers got nerfed in the beta, and they take longer to produce than before. So this turtle carrier style isn't as strong as it used to be. And then here, I kind of notice there's photon overcharge. There's a mothership, and I'm attacking uphill. So I want to make sure I'm very patient and keep the hydras in the back. I'm on a bit of a ticking clock, but it's much better to have the queens in the front and take an engagement a bit later than to have the hydras in front and kind of rush in. So here, I notice that the opponent is trying to focus my overseer, so I change my transfuse target from these front queens to this overseer. If this mothership is able to cloak all these units, I won't be able to focus them down. So really crucial to keep this alive. And whenever the opponent starts to focus your overseers, it's good to make a few extra. So maybe making 2 or 3 more. I think I made some eventually in the main. So the Queen Hydra looks really strong. From Protoss, what could counter this really well? Well, for one, I was greedy at the beginning, so if they went for a bunch of adepts and a big adept attack, queens aren't very good at defending that. They could also go for disruptors. Notice the army is very much kind of clustered together. Disruptor shots would wreck this pretty hard. But we kind of know by these stargates here that they have no capacity to afford both tons of carriers and enough disruptors to deal with this. Transitioning out of it, probably going for 3-3 is best, since I'm already heavily committed to ground upgrades. You could also go for Corruptor timings against Turtle Carrier. The issue with Corruptor timings is they can switch their Starport cycle to, Stargate, to Void Rays, and Void Rays do really well against Corruptors. GG. Colossus. Have you some analysis? Yeah, just let the Hydras hit the interceptors. I should have mentioned that. I'm just attack moving. So the thinking behind this push is you attack with a critical mass of anti-air firepower and just kind of gradually push forward into the Protoss base, and you mow down the interceptors as they're coming at you. Carriers can always use cliffs and kind of retreat back to the point where the queens and hydras can't focus them down. But if you just kind of press forward very slowly, like a steamroller into their bases, they have no way of defending that because you can just kill all the interceptors as they're being deployed.